think I will first give background of this multidisciplinary partnership thought process from when it started and where it has landed today, and what more is required to be done. Since there are two other stalwarts also to speak, I think many more perspectives will be added. And since this is a new approval from MCA, it is possible that there may be some apprehensions or maybe some amendments required or maybe some steps required. So first of all, so far as chartered accountants are concerned, today's figures, let us see. Today we have registered 3,37,000 plus chartered accountants, out of which 1,54,054 are in practice, and the remaining chartered accountants are in either service, in business, or in industry. So the number of members in practice as of today is little less than 50%, and that is a matter of concern too. Again, among 1,54,054 chartered accountants in practice, further analysis shows that 63,154, little less than 50%, are practicing as proprietary concern, and 26,711 firms are with less than 10%, 10 partners. So more than 10 partners firms are very limited, and still we see a large number of chartered accountants practicing either as proprietary concern or as small firms. Everybody will agree in today's scenario where every area of practice requires specialization. If you want to really give bouquet of services, a small firm would not be suitable or conducive to that kind of practice. If a person wants to specialize, say, in one subject and render very specialized service in that subject only, a proprietary concern may be thought of. Or if a firm is practicing in 1, 2, or 3 areas, then with limited number of partners, it is possible to practice. But if you look at the areas in which many firms are practicing, like audit, internal audit, direct tax, indirect tax, insolvency, money laundering act, and there are many other fields like management consultancy, financial services, then I don't think very small firm suits. And if I give one example where only chartered accountants are not enough, and for company secretaries, only company secretaries are not enough, or for cost accountants, advocates, or engineers, or architects, only that category of professional is not enough, even if it is a big firm of 10, 15, or 20, or 50 partners. But if all are from the same profession, certain areas of practice would require specialization from other branches also. So take example of insolvency profession, where a chartered accountant may look after, say, accounting, auditing, or even as CFO for the limited period where RP has to perform that function. But here, suppose a CA firm is doing the work of RP. Of course, appointment would be in the name of a single person. But if there are no advocates, company secretary, cost accountants as partners, then company secretary's area, where again specialization is required, this person would be seeking only an opinion. Where a lawyer is required, you can either appoint lawyer to represent or appoint only for consultancy. Or if engineer or architect service is required, again, you can appoint them as professional, but within the firm, you will not have expertise on everything that insolvency practice would require. So multidisciplinary partnership in today's scenario has become absolutely necessary. Now let us see where are the roots of MDP. I'll call it MDP for brevity. In February 2012, the Chartered Accountants Act, Company Secretaries Act, and Cost Accountants Acts and regulations were amended. And they were all allowed. All these three institutes were allowed to register multidisciplinary partnership. Since then, the need for MDP was felt, but I think all the three institutes did not take much lead in this direction. And for 7-8 years, I think these provisions remained on paper, but there was no action. So far as CA Institute is concerned, here in 2021, again, very aggressive urge for having MDPs was felt, and a group was formed to examine and come out with some guidelines and what further action would be required. So along with the new guidelines which were formed a year before, we also realized that we need to amend form number 18 for registration of firms. This is the form that ICAI uses for registration of firms. So we passed resolution in the council for the amendment of the form, amendment of the regulation in regulation 53B, and we realized that this requires government approval. So we sent it to Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and Ministry of Corporate Affairs gave in principle approval, but said that you need to expose it to the members for their comments if they have any suggestions. So this was exposed for members' comments. A few comments were received. Some of them were really useful, and we incorporated those comments and sent it back to MCA. And finally, on 1st July, which is the foundation day for ICAI, we received a communication from MCA that we have approved your new form and you may go ahead, we will notify it. Finally, on 8th July, this form was notified in the Gazette, and from that date onwards, we started propagating that MDPs be formed and they will be very useful. Now, let us see where it stands today, what are the obstacles and what we need to do, and where we can start forming MDPs. So first of all, I have given you complete background of approvals and everything. Let us see the benefits which we have already seen with one example, insolvency law practice. So there are many other laws where you require multiple expertises in multiple fields, and even audit practice or company law practice would require expertise of other professionals. So that is how this is felt as the need of the hour. Presently, so far as chartered accountancy is concerned, practice is allowed as partnership firm under the Partnership Act 1932 or as limited liability partnership under LLP Act of 2008. We have in place the guidelines for formation of multidisciplinary partnership, and as per these guidelines, the provisions of CA Act and regulations as amended are available. They permit the members of the institute to form MDPs with specified professionals, and these specified professionals at present are company secretary, cost accountant, advocates, actuary, architect and engineer. Out of all these professionals, advocates are those with whom MDP cannot be formed at present because it requires approval of the Bar Council, and at present there is no approval of the Bar Council. So we cannot form partnership with an advocate. So far as company secretary and cost accountants are concerned, I think we had dialogue with the presidents of these institutes, and they said that they will discuss and they will, based on the guidance by the council, they will decide to form some guidelines. At present, according to me, and Atul Bhai may find when he has to speak, he may confirm or may say about this. Probably these two institutes are yet to come out with guidelines. So at present, immediately you can't form partnership with company secretaries and cost accountants. I would rather say that we will meet once as soon as possible, and suppose there are any apprehensions, we'll discuss about it and try to see that even they come out with guidelines and we approve multidisciplinary partnership. If you ask me, according to me, this provision is a win-win situation for every professional. I don't see there is anything which should be more beneficial to one professional, less beneficial to other professionals. On the contrary, if they all come together, all these professionals, even bigger work of bigger corporates can be taken. So that is the biggest benefit. Now, let me deal with some of the definitions which we have in our guidelines. In these guidelines, Act means Chartered Accountants Act, regulations means the Chartered Accountants Regulations. Multidisciplinary partnership firm of Chartered Accountants in practice means the firm which has been approved to practice in its name by the Council of ICAI under Regulation 53B, read with Regulation 190 of the regulations. These are just regulation numbers for those who do not know what are the numbers. And I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation, which after the session is over, I will email it to chamber, and you may in turn email it to all the members or participants. I would have done it, but its preparation was going on about 10 minutes back only. I have received it finally. And we made various changes where it was required. So I could not email it. I was thinking that it is a panel and probably I have to speak for half an hour or 45 minutes. But then I was told that probably Company Secretary Institute President is not available today, and I may have to deal with at least the provisions fully, then we may have discussion. So then I thought it is better if I have PPT available, and then although I may not be in a position to email it immediately, but after the session is over, it may be emailed. So we will do it immediately after the session. Now, what was the objective of this guideline? The objective was to guide the chartered accountants in practice for entering into partnership with the members of the professional bodies as prescribed in Regulation 53B. That is the number of professionals that I mentioned. Now, where does the right to enter into partnership lie? In CA Act, it is Section 2, Clause 2 or Subsection 2, whatever way we may call it. A member of the institute shall be deemed to be in practice when individually or in partnership with chartered accountants in practice or in partnership with members of such other recognized professionals as may be prescribed. So number one, whether partnership with other professionals is allowed. In the definition of partnership itself, it provides that partnership with members of such other recognized professionals as may be practiced is allowable. So where it is prescribed, again, we will look at that. Now, let us look at applicability. These guidelines apply only to MDP as in practice, that is multidisciplinary partnership. as partnership firm along with the members of the professional bodies prescribed under Regulation 53B. So all these, that is company secretary, cost accountants, advocate, actuary, architect, engineer, they are all in Regulation 53B, prescribed in Regulation 53B. Advocates, we have one limitation, bar council's approval is not there, so it can't be done at present. We will take up with bar council and see what we can do. Then we come to one limitation on actuary. Now, so far as actuaries are concerned, see, with company secretary, cost accountant, engineer, architect, whether they are in practice or they are not in practice, partnership can be done by a chartered accountant. But so far as actuaries are concerned, we can enter into partnership with them provided they are not in practice. Now, this is as per actuaries law. Their act provides that if they are in practice, they can be in partnership only with actuaries and none else. But for those actuaries who are not in practice, there is no limitation. They can enter into partnership with any other professional. So this is one limitation, and we will see if we can remove. One clarification, that we can't enter into partnership with MBS because it is not permitted in Regulation 53B. So that is not permitted. Now let us deal with company secretary. Which provisions of the Company Secretaries Act permit it and where we should look for it? So if there are company secretaries in audience, or if chartered accountants have to talk with company secretaries and guide them because their guidelines are not ready, then as per section 2(1)(c) of the Company Secretaries Act, company secretary means a person who is a member of the institute. Then we come to the other relevant provision, section 2, clause 2. Here, a member of the institute shall be deemed to be in practice when individually or in partnership with one or more members of the institute in practice, or in partnership with members of such other recognized professions as may be prescribed, they can enter into partnership. So section 2(2) of CA Act and 2(2) of Company Secretaries Act are at par. Both say that you can enter into partnership with professionals which are prescribed. Now, where are the other professionals prescribed in the Company Secretaries regulations? So, just 1 minute. I will talk about regulation of the Company Secretaries regulation, which permits partnership with chartered accountant. Regulation 168 capital B of the Company Secretaries regulation. In that sub-regulation 1, clause A provides that they can enter into the member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So for the company secretaries, the relevant regulation is section 168B. For chartered accountants, it is 53B. So these two are parallel. Now again, in company secretaries regulations, advocates, cost accountants, all are prescribed. But I was talking about partnership with chartered accountant and company secretary. It is in 168B(1)(a). Then let us come to cost accountants. Again, as per section 2(1)(b) of the Cost and Works Accountants Act, cost accountant means a person who is a member of the institute. Then again, section 2(2) of the Cost and Works Accountant Act, it is exactly similar or exactly mirror image of section 2(2) of CA Act and Company Secretaries Act. It also says that they can enter into partnership with members of such other recognized professions as may be prescribed. So similar provision. And here in Cost and Works Accountants Act, Regulation 111C, 111 capital C of the Cost and Works Accountants Regulations 1959, Sub-Regulation 1, Clause A, also deals with partnership with chartered accountant who is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So in all the three acts, permission to enter into partnership with each other is there. Again, in cost accountants regulations, they can enter into partnership with company secretaries, advocates, engineers, actuaries, and architects. But advocates limitation we know, but for that they are permitted. In my presentation, I have covered even advocates, and Advocates Act is silent. It says that you have to follow the rule of the Bar Council, and Bar Council does not permit partnership with any other profession. So this will require dialogue with Bar Council. When they agree, they amend their rules, then only it will be permitted. At present, out of all these professionals mentioned, except for advocates, in all other professions, there are enabling provisions. Now we are left with engineer, architect, and actuary. Again, quickly, I will cover provisions which permit partnership with engineers. Partnership with engineers, Section 2F defines. See, first of all, they say that member of Indian Institute of Engineer means member as elected and approved under clause 48 of the bylaws of Indian Institute of Engineers. Engineer from university established by law as per the University Grants Commission Act. Now, as per Section 2F, university means a university established or incorporated by or under a central act, a provincial act, or a state act, and includes any such institution as may, in consultation with the university concerned, be recognized by the Commission in accordance with the regulations made in this behalf under this act. Now, under the UGC, Chartered Accountants Institute is recognized for the purpose of partnership with engineers. So CA, company secretary, cost accountants, all are eligible to enter into partnership with engineers. And this is in the UGC regulations where it is open for engineer to enter into partnership with these professionals. So far as architects are concerned, architects bylaws again provide that they can enter into partnership with other professionals. So here it is open. With any other professional, a fellow or associate or licentiate, one can enter into partnership. So it is open. For actuary, as I told you, it says that actuary in practice can enter into partnership only with practicing actuary. But for the actuary who is not in practice, he can enter into partnership with any other person, because there is no specific prohibition in the Actuaries Act. And this interpretation we have drawn by taking opinion from MCA also and independent opinion also. So again, for entering into partnership with actuary, there is no bar if he is not in practice. Now, coming to certain other provisions in the guidelines which CA Institute has drafted. Members of other professional bodies, there is some guidelines on this. Members of any professional bodies or persons having prescribed qualification other than as specifically prescribed under 53B of the regulations shall not be admitted in partnership. For examples, members having post-graduation qualification in management, approved valuer or approved insolvency professional or information technology professional shall not be admitted as partner in MDP CS in practice. So if another insolvency professional is a CA company secretary, cost accountant, actuary, engineer or architect, you can admit. But an IP who is a postgraduate, you would be aware that even an MCom or MA or MSc can go for insolvency qualification. And if such a professional is insolvency professional, a CA or company secretary or cost accountant cannot enter into partnership with such IP. But if the IP is a CA, IP is a cost accountant or architect, engineer, actuary, you can enter into partnership. Then forms of constitution, we have already discussed. In the guidelines also it is given that under the Partnership Act, it should be partnership, or under LLP Act, it should be a LLP. Registration with CA Institute. Now, since the other institutes have not come out with forms, I will not be able to speak about that, but under the Chartered Accountants Regulations, now form number 18 has been revised, and MDP CS in practice, if it is a new firm to be constituted, then you have to fill up form number 117. Suppose you are forming a MDP for the first time, then you have to fill up form number 117. But if it is an existing firm in which you are admitting other professionals, then you have to fill up form number 18. Then when MDP is registered with CA Institute, it will have MDP as abbreviation. So it will be regarded as MDP after the name of the firm. Say ABC, MDP will be written as a suffix. In the guidelines, there is one requirement of verification of partners. Now, one question was raised by the other two institutes, and I will answer it here also. At present, Chartered Accountants guidelines say that when you enter into partnership with any other professional, the KYC of that partner is required to be certified by a chartered accountant. So the question is, take an example, there is a firm of 3 chartered accountants, and a company secretary and a cost accountant are admitted as partner under MDP. So that cost accountant and company secretary's KYC, any member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India will have to verify from the Institute of Company Secretaries or cost accountant and give an attestation. Now a question was raised by Company Secretary Institute or and the Cost Accountants Institute, that suppose we come out with guidelines and we provide that any company secretary entering into partnership with CA or a cost accountant entering into partnership with CA, we also have similar KYC norm that any company secretary has to verify the KYC. So we said, yes, you can provide it, because this is for each institute to satisfy its requirement that any other professional of any other profession is entering into partnership. So at least Company Secretary Institute or Cost Accountant Institute will not have list of members of Chartered Accountants, or Chartered Accountant Institute will not have list of members of Company Secretary Institute. So we will have to approach each other for the KYC and get it certified by any member. Then services to be rendered by MDP CS in practice. Now this is a question which needs to be answered, because there are certain exclusive fields for chartered accountants, exclusive fields for company secretaries, exclusive fields for cost accountants. So in our guidelines, we have provided this way that MDP CS in practice can render all services as prescribed in section 2.2 of the Act, read with regulation 190A of the regulations. MDP CS in practice can also render services allowed to be performed by other professionals who are its partners. So under their respective regulation, whatever services are permitted, this MDP can render services of that profession also. Now, when it comes to specific service which only a CA can provide, and that is audit under the Companies Act, our guidelines say that Section 141(1) of the Companies Act provides that a person shall be eligible for appointment as an auditor of a company only if he is a chartered accountant, provided that a firm whereof majority of partners practicing in India are qualified for appointment as aforesaid may be appointed by its firm name to be auditor of a company. Now here, our guidelines say that, see, there is a specific provision in the Companies Act that if a firm wants to carry out audit, majority of its partners should be chartered accountants. But if a firm does not want to do audit of a company, then majority of partners can be company secretaries or cost accountants or even architect or engineer. So then that firm, if majority is not chartered accountants, that firm will not be allowed to carry out audit. So this is one limitation for a firm wanting to do audit, that if such a firm wants to go for multidisciplinary partnership, it will have to ensure that majority of partners are chartered accountants. Now, our guidelines clarify that what do you mean by majority of partners? For example, a multidisciplinary partnership has 3 chartered accountants, 1 company secretary and 1 architect. Will it be a firm having majority of chartered accountants? The answer may be yes or no. Now, when no, suppose the share of profit of these 3 chartered accountants is less than 50% or less, then this firm again will not be regarded as a firm having majority of partners as chartered accountants. So both in terms of number and in terms of share of profit, if it is more than 50%, that firm will be regarded as a firm having majority of partners as chartered accountants, and that firm can carry out audit. But suppose this is 50% or less, such a firm can be formed. Only limitation will be that such firm will not be able to undertake audit of a company. So Company Secretaries Institute may also come out with guidelines. They have not formed so far, but just they may come out with such guidelines that if exclusive fields which are meant for company secretaries, they want their members to undertake, probably they can make some similar provision in the guidelines. Then share of profit, administration, management, and functional responsibility. Our guidelines say that we are not laying down anything. It is left to the firm how to manage, how to administer, and functional responsibilities, how to assign, that is left to the firm. And reconstitution of MDPCs in practice, admission, retirement, death. So CA Institute provides that they have to file form number 18. Similarly, the other institutes may provide that if there is change in constitution, whatever respective forms are prescribed under their regulation, they may provide in the guidelines. Then establishment of a branch office. I think I will read this for the benefit of members. It is necessary to understand. Where a chartered accountant in practice or a firm of such chartered accountants has more than one office in India, each one of such offices shall be in the separate charge of a member of the institute. Council may, in suitable cases, exempt any chartered accountant in practice or a firm of such CS from the operation of this subsection. So we have one exception here, which we can use for the MDPs. Then every chartered accountant in practice or a firm of such chartered accountants maintaining more than one office shall send to the council a list of office. This is okay. The list is to be sent to the council. Now, by virtue of section 27 of the Chartered Accountants Act, only chartered accountants are permitted to be in charge of the branch offices of MDP CS in practice. However, it may be noted that in terms of proviso given in subsection 1, the council is given the power to grant exemption. So I think similar power may be there in Company Secretaries Act and Cost Accountants Act. Suppose there is a firm with majority of non-CS and they want to have branches spread over the country, then it is possible that in charge of some branch may be non-CA. But section 27 has a proviso which permits council to grant exemption from the requirement of having only a chartered accountant in practice as in charge of the branch. So this relaxation is already there in this section. Now, fees for professional services, it is left to the firm. Other business or occupation for chartered accountant partners of MDP CS in practice engaged in any other business or occupation or part-time employment, the provisions of section 190A and 191 of the regulations will apply. And professional address, for the professional address of partners in practice, the provisions of regulation 187. So a partner may give intimation of his address, that is regulation 187. Disciplinary proceedings, it will be undertaken by the respective institute. So suppose in MDP there is a complaint against a CA, then it will be dealt with by CA institute. There is a complaint against Company Secretary Institute, it will be dealt with by Company Secretaries Institute. So again, there is complete flexibility in our guidelines, that it is not that even for engineer, actuary, it is left to the respective institutes to do the disciplinary proceedings of their members. So I think this covers everything which is there in the guidelines. And although in the presentation, the even dates of publication of these forms, approval, everything is given in detail, provisions in Company Secretaries Act, Cost Accountants Act, everything is given. I have summarized everything and told you. So now we can hear the other speakers or have discussion, whatever way you have formatted, we can go ahead. But so far as these guidelines are covered, everything is covered. And I think this is a win-win situation, and every profession will appreciate and take benefit of MDP, which is available in the respective acts.
Thank you, sir. Now I request CS Atul Mehta to share his thoughts.
So you asked me to become a one-down, best man after Jambusaria ji. Thank you, Jambusaria ji, and thanks, Dharan Bhai and Ketan Bhai. They called me just in the morning and said, "Look, Mr. Mehta, you have to play one down." I said, "Okay." See, I'm here in Nagpur for some seminars and conference, but anyway, since it was a C institute, our sister institute, I cannot say no to it. Of course, Nihar Bhai has covered almost the whole regulations, and I'll just share my experience because I'm not going through in very detail of this regulation. But in 2015, when I was a president, there was a discussion, and the all three institute that we met and we have deliberated. But then somehow, there was some concern by the institute like cost accountant and a company secretary. Look, you have a big chartered accountant firm in India, but you don't have those kind of a big company secretary firm or a cost accountant firm. So probably the members of the respective institute like CS and cost accountants, they will have some challenges. So that was some concern, and there were some other issues also. The practicability of the implementations of these regulations. But now I think things are very clear, And as Nihar Bhai said, it was a need of the day. I mean, where unless and until you have all professional working together, I mean, so you cannot achieve certain, the work, for example, like insolvency and bankruptcy work. You need, somebody who can oversee the compliance. You need somebody who can see the accountancy work, and so you have a specialized knowledge. One has to look into it. So yeah, this is a good move, and probably our company secretary institute. I was talking to a president who was here in Nagpur today. He also, I think, probably our chamber has approached them first, but our institute, company secretary institute, is also in the process of preparing the regulations, and they are. I'm sure, maybe it will be out, by next month, and there'll be more deliberations and more the clarity will emerge, as and when regulations are out. And of course, there are some questions among the professional, how it will work, who will sign the respective. For example, if you have a multidisciplinary firm where you have a company secretary and a chartered accountant, can a company secretary of that firm can sign those statutory report? Of course, on the face of it, the answer should be no. And if you have a statutory auditor, I mean, so you have this secretarial audit, and you have a multidisciplinary firm, who's going to be signed, So of course it has to be a company secretary. So there were so many other questions, been asked, and something very similar, like tax audit report. Like I was just going through some articles where it says, look, if it is a multidisciplinary firm, even a company secretary who's a part of that firm can also sign this. So you require some kind of more clarifications going further, as and when we start working on it. And then you have the members sitting outside India, how you're going to make them the partners in this firm. So yeah, this is of course, Nihar Bhai has covered almost all regulations which chartered accountant has came out. So yeah, this is what I wanted to say. So I'll be eagerly waiting for a Jain Bhai to respond to it.
Now I think we will move to Jain sir. Sir, your comments. Sir,
You
you're
are
on
muted,
mute.
sir.
Yes, I was just, since Atul Bhai gave the example of a one-down batsman, I thought my situation is like Shardul Thakur, because if you see in the cricketing context, the opening batsmen have said that, okay, we have done our thing, abhi aap baki ka dekh lo. So let me in that sequence, since we have the benefit of Nihar Bhai, of course I will give my mind on various other things, but I whether Nihar Bhai will be with us throughout. So, sir, if you permit, if I could just start with one poser to you, because that is not clear in my mind, then I will give my views. That while we have spoken about partnerships in multidisciplinary firms, I was just wondering that have we applied, in the sense, in the present context? I know that we have been thinking, as Atul Bhai mentioned, this issue has been there ever since I was there in the council, which was 2012 and 13. But it has been progressing, and we have been making progress as we went along. We have also got the concept of networking firms. So in CAs, I can have a network partner, let us say, of a firm in, say, Nagpur, or I can have a network partner in Delhi, which is not a partnership, but I can use and put on my letterhead as per our networking rules, saying that my network partner is at Delhi and Nagpur, for example. Would that similar concept also apply to a MDP, in the sense that I may have a network partner who is a company secretary at Delhi and a ICWA network firm at, say, Calcutta? So would that be, has that been thought of, and has there been some progress on that aspect, sir, if you could clarify?
Yeah, we had discussed this. Perhaps our networking guidelines will require clarifications, that networking with such MDPs should also be permitted. So there we will require, because there the words used are firm of CS, firm of CS. So that will require firm of CS, MDP in CA. It will require some amendments which will be required to be carried out soon. So
thank you, sir, because this was one question that was bothering me. Let me then come to a few points that I could present, and I am, of course, now out of the council for almost more than 8 years now, so I may be a little bit out of date, but and therefore my mind, if I may use that word, I would be speaking less as a past council member, more as a common member of the institute, but who fortunately I happen to possess a law degree, and my partner already, although CA and a CS, so we were very eagerly awaiting how we can actually structure this. Couple of my partners are lawyers also, apart from being CAs. So we were very eagerly looking at this. But looking to the practical aspects, sir, I thought I would focus on two aspects. Of course, both of you have spoken about the regulatory aspect. I thought let me address one area, which is that, why has this subject been lingering for so long? I do appreciate there were a lot of operational hurdles, there were a lot of apprehensions, as you use the word in one part of your presentation. But if you come to the bottom of it, and I share that there has been apprehension on parts of various people, especially, and I may say so more openly because the president may not be in a position to say so. I would say that to a certain extent, the other professions, to my understanding, of course, did feel that because of sheer number and volume, we may sort of tend to overpower the others purely in terms of numbers. I'm sure in skill, competence, ability, we are all equal professionals. There is no thought in my mind of belittling the other profession. But there was possibly this feeling somewhere. But more addressed to the members who are participating, I would say that it is a very positive step that all three institutes are working together. I would say that even the guidelines possibly, once both the ICWA and Company Secretary Institute have worked out their own approaches to the guidelines, perhaps we could try and unite all of those and give a single guideline which is comprehensive after getting their inputs. The reason being that for members, life would become much simpler if you have a single guideline, because we would have then various persons coming from each of the institutes who would require one common guidance, and we would of course be subject to our own respective institutes, which remains without question. So that is one area that I would say that would simplify things in the future. And addressing the issue of apprehension, since I happen to be senior in age to both of you, I can use that prerogative. I appear to be, I know I am senior in age to Nihar Bhai, I am sure I am senior in age to Atul Bhai also. I use that prerogative that over the last many years, I have seen the transition in practice before my eyes. And I can tell you that when I first contested for regional council, which was in possibly 1990, early 1990s, the economic scenario was entirely different. And today when we are talking, at that time, we ourselves used to feel very apprehensive of even firms which are today not in the top 5 or top 10 also. We used to feel apprehensive ki itna bada firm hai, how will we survive in practice, how will we manage, and so on. But over the years, we have seen that when we combine, and our firm has been a product of certain mergers that we have had with other CA firms, etc. And I can attest to that fact, especially because many of the participants are all chamber members of chamber, and I have sort of my first office bearership was as joint secretary of chamber in the 80s. So many of them would know that I have grown from doing accounts writing work, so with no background whatsoever in the profession, but been able to build a decent sized firm today, partly because of the combination, partly because we are able to overcome the fear factor. So why I'm saying this is, I'm saying this publicly because I know that there will always be apprehensions that when you are a choti machli in a sea where there are a lot of large fish and sharks in the environment, you will always feel hesitant. But yes, if you overcome that hesitancy, there is huge potential if you collect together as a swarm. So even in the ocean, there are types of fish that combine or types of birds that flock together, which will scare off even predators. So if I look at that analogy, I would say that while there are definitely apprehensions and they are often justified, but the power of coming together often will enable us to overcome not just the apprehensions but the difficulties and give a very positive end result. There will be difficulties, there will be hurdles to be overcome, there will be rule changes, form changes, all that will be necessary. But I'm sure with people like you at the helm, we will have the wisdom to practice what was preached by our former Prime Minister also, Inder Kumar Gujral, that you have to look at others not as competitors. He was speaking, of course, of Nepal, Bangladesh, etc. But in the similar vein, we are not competitors. We are brothers who have to work towards a common cause. And once we adopt that approach, I think all of us will stand to benefit from that. So I am personally very positive on that. Yes, apprehensions are there, difficulties are there, but the changing economic environment, when I started practice, SME practice, sorry, it was not even called SME at that time, it was small scale industries, SSI, with a maximum asset investment size of 25 lakhs. Today, younger generation will laugh at that. So what was my target at that time? To get few audits of companies with 25 lakhs and less investment in fixed assets. Today, if you look at it, that era has gone totally. And today we are looking at doing listed companies, small companies which are not even listed, raising funds from foreign investors and so on. And lots of changes have taken place. I am sure this change is in the right direction in that sense. Also, I would look at it like this, and of course, Nearby is entirely right. We must understand the technicalities of the regulations of what has been prescribed, the forms, etc. But from experience, I would say that while we study the regulations, while we study and make sure that the regulations are in sync with our objectives, I think the first approach that we need to have is to see the desired end result. All the other objections, difficulties, etc., and hurdles, if I may use that word, can be overcome if we are consensus ad idem with the other brother and sister institutes, that we are consensus ad idem with them on the concept that partnership together is a benefit. And that's how I personally look at it. And I will share with you one experience which I had recently and why I perceive that this is important, although I know that advocates are still not within that area. I had to give, and I'm giving a common example so that my colleagues from the chamber will relate to it. I had to give an opinion on an accountancy matter, purely an accountancy issue, on the interpretation of a certain accounting standard, whether it is applicable, not applicable, and so on. To interpret that, there was a need to interpret the provisions of the Provident Fund Act. Now, I came across a dilemma, although being qualified as a lawyer, I felt confident that my interpretation is correct. But it was a very large company and stakes involved were very large. And I therefore suggested that although I am confident about my interpretation, the application of the accounting standard would depend on the interpretation of the Provident Fund Act. While I can still say that I have reasonable knowledge of the Income Tax Act, I am not technically authorized to say that I can interpret Provident Fund Act or law of evidence, etc., equally competent. Therefore, it may be better to take the opinion of a lawyer. So I had to actually approach a lawyer, take his opinion and so on, and then proceed accordingly. So therefore, I felt that in such a situation, if the law permitted that we could have a person, so I should not be accused of practicing law because under the Advocates Act, that is not permitted to persons who are chartered accountants. So therefore, the synergy that is needed, and today's problems are so complex. I'm sure in the issue of corporate governance, there are a number of issues that crop up as members of the board. We come across whether, say, a listed subsidiary, whether this can be done, not done, legal interpretations come up. So if we could have all this under one roof, I think a lot of practical benefit would be there. And therefore, I would look at it that one needs to first, see the solution and then frame the rules, rather than frame the rules and try to come to the solution. It may work to our advantage. The other one thing I may point out is that because one of the questions that has already been asked, and let me try to cover that in my own and then maybe have your own views on that. And very rightly, the questioner has put the question saying that, let's say we have a firm which is having a company secretary, a firm of chartered accountants. I believe that there could also be a firm of company secretaries who may have one chartered accountant as a member, and that same situation will apply to the other institutions as well. But let us say any of these firms is required to do either an audit or a corporate governance review report and so on. So which are the standards that will apply? And the question asked was that whether SQC1 of the audit quality control standard essays would apply. To my mind, at least, the answer to that was that whichever role you are functioning and whoever is the person who is what one may say as the engagement partner. So if I am doing a review which is carried out by a company secretary who is part of my firm, then the company secretary signing off as a company secretary would necessarily have to follow the secretarial standards. But if I am carrying out an audit, and let's say that my firm is a majority audit partner firm, and I am carrying out an audit, then I would be required, or whoever is the signing partner from amongst my CA partners, they would have to follow SQC1 of the standards on auditing. So in my view, at least, all the standards, that means when performing the company secretarial aspect, the secretary is signing off, and ideally he should be the only person signing off. I cannot claim that I can sign a report which a company secretary is supposed to sign only because my partner is a company secretary. So I would sign only what is falling within the permissible activities of the chartered accountant. The company secretary ideally would sign off where a report is required. So far as other matters are concerned, the firm can deal with it as one in a comprehensive manner. So I would have an engineer also participating in my assignment, etc. But where a sign off is required, it would be the respective professional who would apply his own respective standards of quality, ethics, because there might be minor deviations in terms of ethical standards, etc. So these issues could possibly arise. We have not yet reached that level of maturity in terms of architects, but since theoretically this situation is there, I would also like, and I have the benefit of presence of Nihar, I would also like to have this item deliberated that, at least to my understanding, a chartered accountant cannot charge a percentage of fees in many of the items that we are considering under our ethical rules. But for an architect, it is quite normal to do so. So therefore, let's say that if architects were to be allowed to be part of my firm, and if that regulation is effectively permitted, then would it be possible that if I'm doing, say, a RERA assignment, which involves certification by a chartered accountant, but also it requires certain contribution from the architect, but the architect says that I will charge a certain percentage of fees for the firm. So he is a partner in a CA firm, but he is going to charge a percentage of fees, percentage of the project as the fees. So how would this sort of situation be dealt with? And I believe that you gave the example of insolvency. I believe RERA is also one area where significant contributions from other professions, including engineers and architects, where CS certification is also required, would be another area where there would be significant coordination and overlap of work. So I thought these brief points I may make. I'm sort of putting some questions rather than answering them. I must admit that I'm a little bit out of touch, although the guidelines started when I was a member. We have traversed a long path, but based on that, I'm sure the current knowledge will be of great help. And I know that decisions might not have been taken, but you can enlighten us as to what is the thought process currently.
Jayant bhai, just to Nihar bhai, if you can permit me, just some quick reaction. Of course, this will be a very benefits for the client also, because a client is getting under one roof a lot of services. But again, the challenges will be in companies that somewhere it is stated that if you are a statutory auditors, you cannot provide the other services. So I don't know how we are going to be dealing with it, because anyway the multidisciplinary firms are being set up for a purpose, where the client gets all kind of services. So maybe Nihar bhai can throw some light on that. And I mean, this thing, of course, according to me, there has to be only one regulation. Otherwise, all three institutes will come out with a different regulation. Again, collating them, interpreting them, that's going to be another challenge. So maybe under Companies Act, or maybe some independent regulations can come and say, look, you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you cannot do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anyway, this is what my quick reaction. Yeah, Nihar bhai.
Yeah, Jayant bhai, you raised one issue regarding charging of fees on percentage basis. See, the current thinking is that if certification or the work expertise is by architect or actuary, and there if they are permitted to charge on percentage basis and it falls within their purview, then firm can charge on percentage basis so far as those areas of practice are concerned. But I think, see, even right from the time this approval has come in July, we are holding these webinars to find out what questions can emerge out of this. And we will see in disciplinary mechanism, whenever there is a complaint that a firm has charged, say, on percentage basis, whether these arguments which may be put up that my architect's profession permits it or actuary's profession permits it, and this work area falls within the expertise of that professional. So it should actually work. At that time, one should not say, no, it is an overlapping area. Even a CA can do and I will take it as violation. So these are some of the questions which are still hanging. And I think in guidelines itself, we should make it clear and match with the ethical standards. So these points I have also noted, and even in previous seminars, particularly charging of fees was one issue which was raised by many. So we need to answer them or cover them in guidelines and make absolute clarity. So, Atul bhai, anything else you said which I missed? Or
no, I was raising a query whether, like, as a statutory auditors, you're not supposed to give any other services. So, if you have this multidisciplinary firm, their objective, of having an MDF is to have all services under one roof. So I don't know means how it is going to be handled.
Yeah, so if company audits are sought to be conducted, it is going to work as a hurdle, because even today when MCA's consultation paper has not been fully discussed and they have not come out with final guidelines as to whether they are going by section 144 where certain categories of services are permitted. And see, even in our code of ethics, we have a limitation that if you are conducting audit of a company, your fees for other services should not exceed 50% of audit fee. So that is still there. So that will have to be observed when you are serving a client which is a company. Now, if you want company secretary's service, architect service to be rendered to the same company, it is very likely that the other than audit fee will exceed 50% of audit fee. Right. So again, this is probably under the current regulation, it may require planning of structure of the firm. Like you may have two MDPs where one is audit focused and another is so independent. However, there you may render other services. So either it will have to be structured in that way, because this code of ethics are very clear that at least 50% of audit fee by the same firm, and even the other services. At present 144 is open, but NFRA has taken view that no, once you are auditor you can't render any other service, so which is questionable. And in MCA's consultation paper also, it is still as a question mark, not decided. So we are waiting for MCA to decide and again come out with clarification on MDPs.
See, nowadays things are getting very, we face a lot of challenges. For example, like just 2 days before, there was a newspaper item that one of our company secretary member has certified some resolution of a Carvi. Since it is a public, I can take a name. And then he has been charged with some criminal thing because there was some intentions where this resolution was not been passed in the board meeting, and he is certified and he has given something, maybe under the pressure or whatever it may be. So nowadays the regulators are also targeting professional, either he become a CFO or the auditors, or the internal auditor or a tax consultant. So I don't know the MDF, of course, this will have a lot of advantages where the client has to deal with only one person. So if I'm comfortable with Jayan Bhai as a chartered accountant, and I know him personally, so and if I can get all kind of services like secretarial or accountancy or a tax advice, so I'll be very happiest person, because I know he will not do anything wrong, and so I'll be more comfortable, like even if he brings any engineers or architect, so of course it has a lot of advantages. But my only concern is nowadays the earlier regulators were not so very offensive, but nowadays even the SEBI, the stock exchanges and the MCAs are ruthless. I mean, they just they have something in their hand, they interpret in their own way, and they just say, look, you have to pay penalty. Nowadays employee company secretary has been charged and say, look, you have to pay 10 lakhs penalty because somewhere some documentations you have wrongly certified. Yeah.
So I think this is a problem even when you practice as chartered accountant or as company secretary. And at our last meeting on 20th August, let me put it publicly, we have discussed this thoroughly, and there was a resolution that at least we should have a meeting with all these investigation getting agencies, and at least define areas where they should approach the respective professional institute for disciplinary mechanism. So unless there is clear criminal element in any act of a professional, they should not really hijack the entire disciplinary proceeding and then act as if the chartered accountant or company secretary or cost accountant is a criminal. There may be negligence, gross negligence, but there may not be any hands in gloves like situation. So this we have already given it, that we frame examples where at least chartered accountants were charged and they were either negligent or they were not involved, or the matter did not fall within the purview of the criminal act, IPC or any such act, and they have taken action. So this, I think, whether MDP or no MDP, I think company secretaries and chartered accountants and even cost accountants are facing this music of the investigating agencies, and we need to collectively approach them and show them that this is the scope, and such cases should fall within the purview of the respective institute.
Yeah, you're right, sir.
आप म्यूट पे हो.
Sorry. I tried to keep it on mute and then forget. Sorry. If I may just take the discussion a little bit further, because I mentioned about SQC1 and the person had asked, and some other question has also come in on the chat box. So I thought I'll address that so that you don't have to bother reading it. That one is that SQC1 applies to the firm, undoubtedly. Again, I will start with my response, but I would like to hear your authoritative view. My feeling was that if there is a firm which is following different standards for different services, what I mentioned earlier, secretarial standards for secretarial work, SQC1 for audit work, and so on. But in the overall context of the MDP, we will have to follow the highest of the standards, not the lowest of the standards. So whichever is greater will be applicable, would be the general rule. Then we will have to look at specific cases. That is one part. And let me also, that means that is one issue that I would seek your views as a precedent. And the other part is, because that I believe is an misapprehension. The question asked is that if I form an MDP from an existing firm, say for example, my firm is now 30 years plus. So if I admit a CS, the apprehension seems to be that I would lose my seniority, which to my mind is not the correct view, but I would like to have your views on that, sir.
In the CA firm, if a partner is admitted, say a company secretary or cost accountant or architect, the seniority will not be lost. It won't be lost.
And there was one other related question that would be, means again, this we are going into the future, but when we are talking of CNAG empanelment for forensic audit, I'm sure for company secretaries, I'm not so much aware, but there may be some similar empanelments. Whether the fact that if I am doing CNAG audit, say I am being considered for appointment of, say, Engineers India Limited, will the fact that I have got some engineer as my partner be taken into consideration in future? Hopefully that is also a point which you could note down and maybe take up with the regulators, that if I have got, say I am going to do audit, either I will do audit of a PSU which is into, say, some other services, say, or I could be doing auditors of engineering in Engineers India Limited, which is a PSU. But if I've got an engineer as a partner, I should be given more weightage over there. Just a thought.
Yeah.
And this was not my thought.
No, Jayant, you are right. Even for networking, see, at present we are not getting weightage. So we have put up this proposal to CAG that you should go give even weightage for networking, because then you have larger pool of professionals. So in what way to work out, we will have to sit with them. Similarly for MDP, we will have to work out very meticulously as to what weightage for one engineer or architect should be given and what kind of companies. Probably it will be little complicated exercise, for the reason that we will have to justify. In an engineering company, they may give weightage for engineers. In a building construction company, they may give weightage for architect. And in a manufacturing company, they may not give weightage for both of them if the engineer is not in that line of business. So this may require very meticulous working and representation with CAG. For networking, we have already put up. Now they are yet to come back. I think both we should take up together and see that some weightage is given, because that will be a motivating factor for having MDP.
Nihar, even the existing firm, of course, we should wait for regulations. Like if I am having a firm called Mehta and Mehta, can I convert this into MDF with the permission of the council?
In our the fact that we have designed two forms, like if you are forming MDP fresh, a new firm, then we have form number 117. But in existing firm, if suppose we are adding, say, a company secretary, cost accountant, architect, so then we have to fill the same form for reconstitution of firm. Okay. That is only form number 18. So the firm will not lose its seniority. It will have its seniority. already. Now, as Jayant Bhai said, particularly in chartered accountants case where they want to apply for audit on a panel, it is a question of taking further credit for the existence of architect engineer whose expert service would be available for the purpose of audit also. So seniority will be there and it will not be considered as a new firm.
But at the same time, like, I don't know, so these are all very practical issues where, suppose, your firm has been appointed as a statutory auditors for 5 years. Now, tomorrow, like, if you convert this into MDF, probably the whole constitutions change. And this also requires a reappointment at the shareholders meeting, or it just been taken as it is?
At present, it looks like it may not require fresh empanelment. Only the additional partners who have come, credit to be given or not to be given should be the consideration. So under the current scenario, they may not give, but if we represent and they agree, they may give, but it should not be considered as a new firm because there is simply admission of the new partners.
Nihar Bhai, I think it is a very welcome move that as Jayant Bhai said, why it was been held for a long time. And of course, each institute has its own concern. As I said, like in the beginning, probably there was a concern from the CW and CS that look, you have a big chartered accountant from there, probably below it, the members like company secretaries and cost accountant, they were going very slow. But of course, now I think the MCA has also come out and the CA has taken over, the institute has taken up the lead, and I'm sure the other institute will quickly work out. And this is going to be a benefiting to the industry, so rather than approaching multiple, the firm, we have under one roof, all the services. So I'm very positive that this will go good. And of course, the time will tell us, how it is emerging, and even probably going further, there will be some change in the Companies Act and of course, all three institute regulation also. As I said, probably there has to be only one regulations rather than, all three institute comes out, or all the engineering institute and the architect institute comes out with the different regulations. Now, collating them is going to be a big challenge. So rather, probably the request should go to the institute, the ministry, that look, why are you insisting on all the institute to amend their regulation? Of course, with some modifications, referring to the common regulations, And I think probably the CAG also has to relook into it, and some more weightages, Nihar Bhai said, probably, even, like as a practicing company secretary, we are also issuing a certificate, look, under the sky, the company has complied with all the, the regulations and act. Now, this is something, which is, probably going beyond the statutory audits. Somewhere, in some forum, I said, look, our fees should be more than the statutory auditors, because we are certifying that, look, not only accountancy and the accounting standards and all, income tax and all, I'm certifying all the regulations, the laws which is applicable to the company are being complied with. But anyway, so this is what the law. And going further, some more standards, our institute is also pushing for a dividend and all. Let's see how it's go through. But this is a good initiative, and if it is shaping well, then probably I'm sure it will. See, anyway, all these big fours and all, they are already doing it. Unfortunately, people like us, which we are a law-abiding. Of course, I'm not saying that we are not, but they have their own ways and means, where they can do it probably. But now, yes, tomorrow, if I'm joining any firm of a chartered accountant, then of course, my thinkings are very big, and we are coming together, and we are thinking of doing something bigger. It's not only secretarial or accounting, even investment banking and all, which is need of the day, because I think all of us, we agree that our regular fees, it just gives you a curd and rice. So those other activities definitely can help us going into the next level. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so up mute pe ho.
Sir, we are in a mute.
No, no, I was just asking, you would like to say something nearby?
No, I think this is right. And going forward, we must sit together and try to sort out. Suppose there is some apprehension, there is some real difficulty. We should try to sort out. Even to the presidents of the two institutes, I'm proposing let us have a meeting and sit together and work out if there is anything in between, so that it becomes operative fast.
I was just about to add to what Atul Bhai said. Again, a practical example rather than a theoretical one. That I can tell you that, as I said, at least I started from level zero, if I may use that word, starting from scratch. At that time, we used to feel that big firms are going to dominate us, big firms are going to be in a very commanding position, and there was always apprehension. Over the years, I have learned that actually the challenges are also opportunities. Very honestly, I can say this is a close group, so I can confess that fees that I would not have otherwise dared to charge very often, I am now able to charge because we are coming in place of Big Four, and I am possibly charging 20-30% less. And I believe that my quality standards are nowhere inferior to them. My costs are definitely lower. My challenges are in terms of retaining manpower, etc. So I'm not illustrating that to say about my own firm, but I am saying simply saying that what appears, human mind is such, what appears to us as a challenge can very well be an opportunity. So there is actually a challenge undoubtedly in this entire process. But in reality, as you go along, I have found that the level of charging of Big Four, the approach that has been there, and I don't consider them as now as competitors. I look at them as a shield so that I can move up faster. So I'm sure that when we actually start combining our strengths, as you said, in the most ethical manner, now that this will be permitted, we would also be able to sort of empower ourselves with things that we were not able to do in the past. And there will be fields that we have not imagined today that will open up once we actually combine. So I am very optimistic on this, because that incidentally was one question, that is it going to be of benefit? Why I am addressing this issue. One question has come in on the chat box or in the Q&A, saying that most of the firms are all small sole proprietors, small 2-3 partner firms. Is it going to be beneficial to them? And my feeling is, but I would like your inputs from both your side, that my feeling is that we have not explored the potential of a 2-partner firm growing into a multi-partner firm. Let us explore that, and we will find that it may actually benefit you. That is how I would respond to it. Sir, your views on that? Nearby or Atul bhai, whichever one would want.
I agree with you, Jayan bhai.
Agree.
Things are changing, and see, we are in a mobile world, boss. I'm telling you, when the new Companies Act came, and when I was a president, I was just addressing it Ahmedabad, and see, as for the new Companies Act, the director's notice can be given through electronic mode. Okay, and now it is allowed. So it means you can issue a notice through email. Now, one of the youngsters, he stood up from the audience and said, "Mr. Mehta, if I'm issuing a director's notice, the board meetings notice, okay, through WhatsApp, Nihar bhai, sambaljo, it is, if I'm issuing a notice, board of directors notice through WhatsApp, whether it is allowed." So you understand how one apps, in the mobile can change the interpretations, So I did not react immediately, because that was more of a mobile than the electronic. But of course, now the court has held that even the WhatsApp, is allowed and all. And he went further and said, "Mr. Mehta, in this WhatsApp, there is always a confirmation. You get those blue tick also. It means when I'm convinced that he has read, So what I'm trying to convey, even a small mobile apps, can change your interpretations, So we are living in a world where Nihar bhai and Jayan bhai will agree, like those 1956 Act, even a small change, it took, it used to take 10 years and 12 years. But now things are changing, so fast. There's early days of Companies Act 2013. Like all our company secretary, we used to say jokingly, पहले हम लोग सुबह उठ के भगवान को pray करते थे. And the next thing we used to see कि आज कौन सा कुछ forms change हुआ है या फिर ये हो गया, because of course it was evolving. It was evolving, and see even this insolvency, this code, how it is, it is emerging. Then there are more than some 300 Supreme Court decision on this, because it is touching directly to the business. So, and every day, I mean, the IBBI is discovering something, and you have a new things, been changed to the regulations. Anyway, I think, this is probably we have discussed in detail. And thanks, Nearby, you have wonderfully, given a very good presentations. And of course, Nearby was my neighbor, at Navjivan.
Yeah.
Now he's very rare to see nowadays.
No, we will. I recollect those old days. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, we can close.
Parag bhai, yes. Thank you so much, Nihar, Atul and Nyan. Parag bhai, you want to say something?
Yeah. Nihar, I have just one question, or maybe I want some clarity. How the disciplinary mechanism will work? In the sense, suppose if, say today we have a CA firm and we, some of our CS friends join us, and if there is any disciplinary, issue against them, will the entire MDP will be at stake, or ICAI will govern it, or it will have to go to respective, the professional body?
No, see, at present, we have power to deal with only the partner. I think firm can be held responsible for disciplinary matter of a MDP also. See, even today the notice goes to the partner, so it will have to be established through the prima facie opinion who is responsible. If a CA partner is responsible, notice will go from ICAI to the partner, and if any other partner is responsible, the notice should go from that respective institute to that profession.
Okay.
It should work that way.
So each professional institute will still govern their respective members, irrespective of where they are.
True.
Jayan bhai, any other questions left, or we can? You're on mute, sir. Only Nilesh bhai put one question on the chat box.
Jayan bhai, you're muted, sir. Jayan sir, you're muted.
I'm getting old. दूसरा कुछ नहीं. I forget. Sorry. I was just mentioning that if anybody in the audience, because getting the president of ICAI to speak at such a meeting is a great thing. So if Nihar bhai, if somebody has anything to ask him, I am finished with what.
Nilesh bhai has put one question in the chat box. He's saying that when I was the president, the major worry of ICSI was provisions of Companies Act says that the MDP firm who can do audit of companies has to have majority of CAs. I'm not sure if this issue is resolved.
But does it make any difference? Suppose, see, even if suppose for audit purpose, you need to have a firm with more chartered accountants. So far as company secretary works are concerned, or other works, the sharing would be according to various other criteria. Would it make any difference really?
So he's saying ICSI and ICWI were objecting to.
Actually, that is why I said that actually with the two other presidents, we need to sit together and see where the problem or apprehension is and what is the solution to it. Now, if we sit together, it may come out what is in their mind, and we can really discuss it in detail and sort out. According to me, there is a solution. See, even today, when a small firm merges into bigger firm, such questions may arise. No? They may have some USP of certain work. So still the mergers are happening of smaller firms with bigger firms. So sharing arrangement can be done very carefully so that nobody suffers. I think there is a way out to work out the profit sharing.
I think
one question.
This will emerge over a period of time about sharing of fees and all. See, you can't, restrict, like this, because, I mean, earlier used to have those regulations, you cannot share your fees, this, that. But now if I'm doing some work with my, fellow colleague, chartered accountant or a cost accountant or a lawyer, it's a joint effort, So,
Atul bhai, there is, I don't say there is any need to formalize the way in which you share, but see, there can be always understanding. Suppose I am having a small practice, I'm merging with a bigger firm. There may be some understanding how new work will be shared, and that is always mutually to be worked out. And actually, as Jayant bhai said, partnership is a kind of organization where if initially you are prepared to give up, if you are a big brother, in the long run, it benefits everybody. That is, I think, the most important thing everybody has to keep in mind, because partnership, like even marriage, is an adjustment.
yes.
So I don't think it can't be worked out.
The expectations, expectations of all.
Yeah.
Sir, I had one question, maybe that when we speak of majority being CA, would we count both the majority? That means majority in share and majority in number, or is it only majority in share?
Yeah, in the guidelines it is so provided.
Both.
But again, both number as well as percentage.
Only thing, persons residing non-resident Indians, who's a chartered accountant, member of the institute. Now, forming a MDF with him, I don't know how it is going to work.
Actually, even today, some non-residents are partners in Indian firm of chartered accountants. MDP should work the same way, according to me.
Okay.
There should not be difficulty. I don't know whether in company secretaries institutes you have non-resident partners.
No, I don't think so. We have any regulations dealing with it, because profession has not emerged like that. Having a partner outside India. So anyway, it was thanks. Makarand Bhai is on the line. So thanks, Makarand Bhai, giving me this opportunity. I think probably he was called for a discussion, and immediately Dharan Bhai and Ketan Bhai has approached me. And nice to connect. The institute. Nowadays, I don't hardly speak, but then got into a practice and all. But yeah. So thank you. The tax chamber. I'm going to be a member. I don't know. I was a member, but somehow I have not paid my fee, so I could reinstate myself. And nice to connect the whole team. And so whenever you need me, definitely I'll be there, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
That's a pleasure, sir.
Nearby, just to introduce, Makaran Joshi is a senior CS and he is co-chairman of the Commercial and Allied Law Committee of Chamber of Tax Consultants.
Oh, right.
So part of our Secretarial Standard Board, sir. He's very active, and
I will only just add one point, that Chamber of Tax Consultants, it was originally Chamber of Income Tax Consultants. It's been one of the oldest organizations on the professional area. It has had a happy amalgamation of ITPs, advocates, tax practice, the chartered accountants, company secretaries, and we are working happily and productively together. I think we can become the sort of role model for this sort of a thing going ahead. And we consciously dropped the word income tax practitioners because we decided, or rather saw, that in the coming trend of younger people coming in, there were a lot of people who were only in corporate practice or corporate law practice, etc. So we did not want to stick to income tax, which was in any case diminishing in importance. So I think Chamber can be a good model, and President of Chamber, I may say that it is good that you have organized under the banner of Chamber and had such an eminent guest like President of ICI, so that we get the benefit of that and serve as a role model for other future endeavors.
Absolutely. So though we are Chamber of Tax Consultant now, let me also mention that we are not confining to tax also. Now, our boundaries have been, earlier it was Chamber of Income Tax Consultant, then we are Chamber of Tax Consultant, and of course, the name is still Chamber of Tax Consultant, but we are equally giving importance to corporate laws, accounting standards. Our accounting and auditing committee is vibrant. Our commercial and allied laws committee, Dharan, has been doing fabulous work for last 2 years, and various other activities in fact. So the chamber's role is not confined to tax now. So the word tax also probably is so to say a misguiding factor, but yes, we are doing many other things also. And of course, Nihar Bhai is aware of our activity, and he has been many a times, in fact, blessing, even before when he was not a president, he was speaking on the chambers forum many a times, and I'm sure that in future also he will continue to bless us. I'm definitely
Yes,
sure.
sure.
And he has been a personal friend. With pride, I can say he has been a personal friend for many of us, in fact. So
Yes, yes.
So Ketan bhai, just
one small question, one more small question which has come, and I find it is relevant. Therefore, let me. Someone has asked a question which says that if a CA is in practice and he is also pass out of a CS examination, so he has passed both, holding COP from CA Institute as of today. Can he also obtain CS COP or vice versa? So it seems to be a very valid question. Nearby, and Atul bhai, maybe.
so if he has taken a COP of a chartered accountancy, then probably the regulation will govern of a C institute, not a CS institute.
Yeah,
So,
but if he enters into a MDP with CS, can he also obtain the CS COP? So can he hold both COP together? That is probably the crux of the question.
both the COPs are not allowed. I don't think so. Subject to nearby confirmation.
He can choose to have one, because the area in which in the firm he would like to have his stake as a chartered accountant or company secretary, he can retain any one and give, or he may, if he's holding COP of CA, he finds that holding COP of company secretary is more useful, give up this and apply for CS COP.
So maybe when both the institutes are meeting probably nearby, I don't know whether workable, not workable. You are better people to decide. You can probably think on that also. Permit both COPs. I don't know whether workable. I think I leave it to your because many other things needs to be seen, and my vision probably may fall too short of what may be the reality of. Anyway, I think just a pointer which has come up from somebody.